You guys ever watch a top-tier miniature painter and wonder how they do it? Like, they're not just copying reference, they're inventing light, form, and even emotion, all from gray plastic. And if you've ever tried to do that yourself, you know just how fast it falls apart. One bad color choice, one highlight in the wrong spot, and suddenly your miniature looks like chalky plastic. The thing is that there's a logic to it, a three-step method that professional painters run through, sometimes without even realizing it. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to think about these three things and take your painting to the next level. Today, I'll show you how they played out in my latest project, this box art of the miniature Faustus from Abyssoul. And if you want to go even deeper into this project, I've got the 3-hour breakdown of this entire paint job from start to finish available for my patrons over on Patreon. We cover every single element and practically every brushstroke from start to finish. For now though, let's get started. Okay. Number 1, volume. Think in shapes. Every object has a volume. Before you even think about color, you need to ask yourself, what shape am I painting? Is it a cube, a cylinder, or a sphere? This is the foundation of volumes and light theory. A sphere has that classic soft transition between the highlight, the core shadow, and the bounce light. Whereas a cube, on the other hand, gives you harsh transitions between different planes. Cylinders, like the armor plates I'm painting here, distort the light in a very specific way. Here, I'm working on a cylindrical surface, and what makes this effect work is two different things. First is that I'm using bold brush strokes with thicker paint. I'm not smoothing everything to death. The brush strokes you see here are confident and textured. I'm quickly trying to sketch the light on the model. And number 2 is the strict adherence to distortion. That means if there's a curve in the highlight, there better be that same curve mirrored in the shadow and bounce light. The illusion of metal depends on that visual consistency. So it's not really about being careful, but it's about being intentional. I wanted to pop in really quick and tell you guys that this past weekend I had a really good time teaching a workshop here in Copenhagen. And good news is I will be teaching another workshop in Randers, Denmark. I'll put the dates for that on the screen in August. And this workshop will be much more beginner oriented and focus on painting maybe your first bust or your first larger scale model and covering all of the basics of volumetry and light and shadow, which is also something that I focused on in this past class here in Copenhagen. The workshops are a really wonderful opportunity for you to spend a whole weekend really deep diving into miniature painting and honing your skills. I'm super thankful for the guys that attended this Copenhagen class. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much to you guys. Number 2, finish. Is it matte or is it reflective? Once you've understood the volume you're trying to paint, next you need to think about how reflective the surface is. Is it dull cloth that absorbs the light, or is it polished steel that reflects the colors of its environment? Non-metallic metal is really about painting reflections. So the transitions are harsh and the contrast is rather extreme. And this is why contrast matters more than the smoothness of your blends. And I think that this is an important point where scale really comes into play. On smaller miniatures, you don't have the luxury of these broad, bold brushstrokes. You're working much tighter from the get-go. Here you can see that there's this base tone that's bluish gray, and how I'm gradually building the highlights using more and more of ice yellow. This is a color that has both white and yellow in it. This creates a very specific environmental read. Blue sky in the steel and a yellow sun in the highlight. The takeaway? Scale changes everything. The smaller the model, the more you need to consider your paint consistency, your brush control, and the way you apply the lighting from the beginning. This also makes smaller models harder to paint in some aspects. There simply just isn't that same room to play around as there are in larger models. Second, consider how shiny or matte the material is and work the contrast consistently. Which brings us to the third point, and that's environment. What's being reflected? All right, so you've got your volumes and you have your finish, but now you need to ask, where is this thing? What's around it? What's being reflected? This is rather subtle, but it's huge. A warm floor might reflect some reddish tones into the lower shadows. A cool sky might tint the upper highlights. That's why you'll often see blue or green glazes in the darker reflections on non-metallic metal. These colors just feel right in that context. In fact, let's try something. I'll sometimes take a photo of an actual environment and then sketch in a reflected sphere onto that digitally. And you can try this as well. I promise you'll start seeing non-metallic metal quite differently. This is how you create metal that looks like it exists somewhere, not just floating in the void or in a perfect white photo studio. And here we're talking about it in the context of non-metallic metal, but of course this applies to all the other materials on a model as well. So these are the three big concepts I wanted to explore today: volume, finish, and environment. But here's the twist. I don't really think that the best painters are thinking actively about these three things while painting. Not consciously, anyway. Because they've internalized the rules so deeply that most of it is automatic. The best painters have moved past technique and into expression. As jazz legend Charlie Parker put it, first you learn the instrument, then you learn the music, and then you forget all that shit and you just play. That's the goal. You start with light and shape, you master reflection and contrast, you study how the world looks to your eyes and you try to recreate it in your miniatures. But eventually you'll let go of that scaffolding and your painting becomes something more. Less about showing off skill and more about telling a story. Good technique is simply the baseline. It'll be less about being perfect, more about making someone feel something. That's when you end the process of painting miniatures and begin making art. And if you want to see how all of this comes together in practice, I've got the full Faustus box art painting series on Patreon. It's 3 hours of footage breaking down every step of this exact project. From the initial sketching to the final details on Faustus, I'll cover it all in this series. Lighting decisions like the cast shadows, mixing the colors, and of course we take a deep dive into reflective surfaces such as non-metallic metal. You've got a little bit of a taste of in this video. So if you want to find the full thing, you'll find it in the Patreon. There's a link down in the description. Thank you so much to my patrons. I couldn't do this without you. Appreciate your support. So to recap, you need to think in volumes and light, consider the finish of what you're trying to paint, and lastly, you should know the environment that's around the character you're painting. Hone these skills till you know them in your sleep, and then forget all of it and make something that matters. Paint something that evokes emotion in yourself, and surely it will resonate with the viewer. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy painting.